Hello, I'm Jerry Crow of the Pacifica Historical Society, and today's host of Footprints of Pacifica, our series that discovers and explores the lure and lore of lovely Pacifica, its character and its characters. Today's show is about the Sharp Park Golf Course and the legacy of Honora Sharp. A coastside attraction for over 75 years in what is now Pacifica, the golf course is actually run by the San Francisco Parks and Recreation Department, something of a surprise to many people. To help us learn more about this beautiful attraction and how it came to be here, and what is the nature of the current controversy regarding its future, we have an extremely knowledgeable guest, Barbara Arrieta. Barbara is a very active citizen of Pacifica. She serves on the board of the Pacifica Historical Society, is president of Pacifica Democrats, is a member of the San Mateo County Transportation Authority and the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury, is a director of the Library Foundation, chair of the Green Building Task Force, a member of the Pacifica Golf Course Task Force, and is a Pacifica Tribune correspondent. Welcome, Barbara.
Well, thank you.
I understand the golf course is under something of an attack now.
Yes, it is actually a political attack, as it were. There's a number of people who would like to see the golf course return to a natural habitat and to the exclusion of everything else. And we who want to keep the golf course as a golf course, in addition to being a sanctuary for the red-legged frog and the snake, hope to be able to prevail and save the golf course, because this isn't just a golf course. This is a masterpiece in its day. It's a work of art. It's not a golf course that was created on Highway 80 to sell a housing tract. It was designed by Dr. Alistair McKenzie. Are you familiar with Dr. McKenzie?
I'd like to hear more. Let's start at the beginning.
Okay. Well, Dr. McKenzie was an actual medical doctor, and he started out telling his patients that he felt that fresh air and sunshine would be the best thing for them, and said, why don't you take up golf? Well, he found out that a lot of his patients actually took up golf and improved their health. So he thought, well, you know, this is down on my business, but up on my advice. At the same time, Dr. McKenzie was called into the Boer War. And while he was hiding in a trench in the Boer War, he started looking around at the bunkers. And he started fantasizing about bunkers and golf courses. I guess any port in the storm to get you through the problems. But anyhow, the thing is that when he got out of the Boer War, when he came back home, he found that he really was going towards designing golf courses, and that's exactly what he did. He's one of the world's most famous golf architects. He designed Cypress, which is down in Monterey. He redesigned Pebble Beach, the Del Monte course, came up here to San Francisco area and did the Meadow Club in Fairfax, Green Hills in Millbrae. It used to be the Union Club. I talked to you before about that. It was called the Union Club in the day that McKenzie designed it, but now it's known as Green Hills Country Club in Millbrae. He did the Claremont Golf and Country Club over in Oakland. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh, my mother was a member of that for many, many years.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's see, what else did he do up around this area? Well, Sharp Park. He did Sharp Park. He did Pasatiempo and Santa Cruz. And Pasatiempo and Santa Cruz is where he maintained a home on the 6th Fairway. And he moved to California. He was traveling all around the world because he redesigned St. Andrews in Scotland, and he designed the Melbourne in Australia, and it's the Masters in Augusta. The man was an artist, and when this golf course opened April 16th, 1932, it was considered a municipal masterpiece of its day.
It takes quite a bit of acreage to make a decent golf course. How did it come about that this area, this property was available?
Well, this particular property is 410 acres, but certainly that's not dedicated to the golf course per se. I think the golf course probably occupies maybe 112 of those acres, give or take 10 acres or so. How did the golf course come about? It's a kind of a long history, but it starts with the Sharps. The Sharps, George Sharp arrived here in 1849. He was an attorney, and he more or less was a very successful attorney, developed a lot of land, and he and his wife, Honora Sharp, lived in San Francisco as bon vivants, and I can resonate to this. I'd like to have known the Sharps. They lived in hotels, and they also maintained a beautiful piece of property down here in Sharps Park, as we call it today, though at the time I believe it was called Salada Beach in that area.
That's right.
And basically, Mr. Sharp died of a heart attack in court in 1882, and Honora lived on until 1905, wherein she died. She left her estate. There's more to her estate than just the ranch at Sharp Park. But she left it to two family friends who were both attorneys, both Recreation and Park Commissioners for San Francisco. And one was Adolph Spreckles, the other one was Reuben Lloyd. And they more or less maintained it as joint partnership until about 1916, when Adolph Spreckles, for the tune of $10 gold, gave it to San Francisco, his portion. The very next year, Reuben Lloyd died, and his executor was Samuel Murphy. Samuel Murphy, in 1917, the same year that Reuben Lloyd died, turned it over to San Francisco. But he's the one, and not Honora Sharp, and not George Sharp, but it was actually George Murphy who put into this will the caveat that it would have to be maintained for park purposes or recreational purposes. It was never to be sold. If it was going to be used for anything else, it would revert to the state of California. If the state of California abridged that agreement, then it would go back to the Murphy heirs. And basically, that's how Sharp Park became San Francisco. And as far as becoming a golf course, in the 1920s, it was a good time. And a lot of people in those days in San Francisco were getting into golf, and there were several golf courses being built: Lincoln, Harding, McLaren, and so on and so forth. And they ran out of space for golf courses. So they looked around and they said, wait, we've got this big land down there in northern San Mateo County. And that's how in 1929, they signed a contract with a world-famous golf architect, Dr. Alistair McKenzie. He designed it, and it was built for about 2 years. It took them to build it. He and Mr. Robert Hunter, who also worked with him on many golf course designs. And April 16th, 1932, Sharp Park opened up its doors, and it was a municipal masterpiece, acclaimed to be in its day.
I imagine that was quite an occasion.
Oh, it certainly was. And of course, the clubhouse is designed by Willis Polk, and Willis Polk actually died, I believe, in 1925, but his firm designed it. Angus McSweeney was an architect of the day, and he was a good friend of Alistair McKenzie. Dr. McKenzie used Mr. McSweeney to design several golf club houses on his various courses that he worked on.
I believe he also worked on St. Mary's Cathedral in San Francisco.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did, indeed.
Let's see, we did. What about the uses of the clubhouse today? Does it continue to be notable?
Yes, it does. And I, as a president of the Pacifica Democrats, the oldest Democratic club in San Mateo County, would like to say that we utilize it every single month for our forums, but it's also used for a variety of community events. I believe the Rotarians meet there. Certainly, there's been weddings and wakes and receptions and probably a few bar mitzvahs. It's been used for a community resource for meetings for years and years and years, and that is such an important thing in our town because we don't have that many quality areas to have large meetings.
I know a number of organizations have fundraisers there too.
Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, when I was in San Francisco last week, I was in City Hall and I happened to strike up a conversation with a group of Asian golfers. And I asked them about what they thought about the possibility of losing Sharp Park, and of course they were very, very much concerned about that. And they said, you know, we come here all the time, twice a week, and there's about, I think the man said there was about 75 of them. They're all from San Francisco. And they golf twice a week. But he said some of the most important things are the fundraisers that Chinatown from San Francisco has at Sharp Park Golf Course. They have once a year, they have some big, fabulous fundraiser that helps a lot of the children in the Chinatown area.
So there are many communities that are reached by this facility in one way or another.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just, we did a survey.
Want it over the shoulder at all?
We did a survey, and it indicated that 71% of the people who golf in Sharp Park are San Franciscans. And there's a number of women, high school students, we have Asians, we have Hispanics, we have a variety of cultural backgrounds, Filipino, Vietnamese. There's much more to the cultural aspects than some would have you believe.
Another feature of the property that is also interesting is the area east of the golf course, where the archery range and a former rifle range are located. Let's watch a short video on that subject.
Okay. Let's
Hope
watch.
we didn't jump the gun.
State relief camp was started during the Depression, I don't know what year. Then Sharp Park Temporary Detention Station was open from 42 to 46.
Yeah, the club actually started back in 44 or something. But, well, at the time, there was actually an internment camp out here during World War II, Japanese internment camp. And that's why there's actually a place over as you come in. There's actually a staircase that goes up to where one of the internment barracks were. That, of course, is all gone now.
We're several hundred Italian and Japanese internees here. There is a site online. If you Google Sharp Park Internment Camp, you'll see some pictures actually of this area as well. And the first thing that will strike you is where are the trees? Because the hills are pretty bare at that time as well. I can show you where some of the buildings were for the internment camp, but I wouldn't pretend that I know exactly where everything was. But some of the things are really pretty obvious, and you can figure them out.
There was 191 Japanese, a number of what they called Peruvian Japanese. There was Chinese, Italians that had been arrested, Germans that had been arrested, and they were all detained here at various times.
From the time that they had the infirmary over here, they had, I guess, both the internment and an infirmary for the internment camp, and medicine bottles.
Well, the archery range is about 60 years old now, starting back in the 1940s, and it's really one of the better archery ranges in Northern California. And every weekend almost you can find archers there, and they have archers from children all the way up into their 80s and 90s. I understand there's one gentleman up there that's still shooting. He's in his 90s, so they go out there every day. And adjacent to that, of course, is a former rifle range that had been there for many, many years in the early 60s. And in the 80s, it was closed due to a situation of where allegedly bullets were being strayed into the hills there, and for a safety reason they had closed that range, and it remains closed today. And obviously it's a situation where there's a lot of toxin and lead and the land there and cannot be used at this time. Eventually, hopefully, working with the city of San Francisco, that something can be done, and maybe perhaps down the future, down the road, that we might have some kind of environmental center there, playing fields in that area. Who knows? That's yet to be decided. That's always for discussion. That lends into itself to what we would like to add to Pacifica.
There are many places where you can hike in Pacifica. There are places where you can skateboard. But this is the only place where you can legally shoot in the city of Pacifica. And this archery range is sort of a focal point for archers from all over the state. We hold 4 or 5 shoots a year here that they draw in hundreds at a time and thousands over a typical year, and is really considered a gem in the archery community. As you walk around and film, I'm sure you can see, why that is. We have whole families that are members here, and every member of the family shoots, from 7-year-old young girls through old fogies like me at 65. We all enjoy this tremendously. Get out in the fresh air, hike around, shoot your bow, do it with the family, and have a good time. And feel good about it because you're outdoors getting some good exercise.
That was a very interesting video on the current uses of the archery range. I'd like to just mention a couple of additional facts on how it came to be there in the first place. There was a relief camp that was constructed in the 1930s, as was mentioned, and the persons that took advantage of that facility were paid 25 cents a day. They got room, board, medical care, and exercise, because to earn their 25 cents they were expected to plant trees in the effort to beautify that particular canyon, and you can see the results today. Then once it was made a part of the official wartime detention network, it was used for shorter periods of time while the individuals staying there were being evaluated. The Japanese that were there once they had been evaluated, may have been then transferred to other facilities around the West or sent back to their original occupations if they had a sponsor that could vouch for them.
And not only that, but there were, as the man said in the video, there were Italians. I had done some,
as well.
And I had done some research on the Italian aspect of it, and there was 1,541 Italians apparently that had been processed through there, at least according to the research that I have. And of course, I don't know the number of Germans or the number of Japanese, but over the course from 42 to 46. That's 4 years. I think they said it was 46 that it ended, but that's a lot of people. And it's surprisingly so, because these people were not enemies, but at the same time were treated as enemy aliens. And a lot of people don't know about that.
That's right. We can perhaps get some insight in with the tensions of the current world situation of the state of mind of the people along the coast back in those days, but still you have to conclude that wiser action might have been taken at the time. Well, what happens now? Tell me about the controversy that has arisen over the use of the golf course.
Well, I'll tell you something. It's about 2.5 years I've been involved in this, and it started very simply, like a frog in water. With cold water. Somebody turned the heat up on both of us. And here I am, 2.5 years down the road, having been a trooper up to San Francisco almost on a monthly basis, giving speeches and listening to what they have to say about what's going to happen to Sharp Park. And we have the habitat environmentalists, and we also have the golfing enthusiasts. I believe that the answer is something for everyone, because we do have a series of people in San Francisco who are from the Neighborhood Parks Council, and they are strictly looking for the children to have places for play and recreation, and they're looking at soccer fields. And what we did is we went in last year. The Golf Task Force invited Senator Leland Yee, State Senator Leland Yee, down to Sharp Park Golf Course. We took the San Francisco Golf Task Force in 2 separate tours, one with Yee singularly and one with the Golf Task Force from San Francisco. And we took both of those parties around the entire course, went back into the canyon. We looked and talked with the archers and showed the Golf Task Force potential areas of land that could be explored, developed for other reasons, such as an environmental center or soccer fields, or maybe perhaps a baseball field, various, even a golf driving range, a multiplicity of things, because I think the true answer for everybody here is not to replace one group's needs with another group's needs, but all groups.
There's plenty of undeveloped acreage for those other purposes.
You betcha, because as I said initially, I think that our golf course probably utilizes about 112 acres of a 410 acreage ranch, as it were. And certainly the astute designers could come and probably create a wondrous design. The question always is money, if we can come across with money. But the ideal thing, as I see it, as a grand juror of San Mateo County, makes a judgment on it, jokingly wise, actually is something for everyone. I've even suggested that with the soccer fields and the play fields and the golf range, and of course the full 18-hole golf course remaining, that we would have some. I found a place over in the Eastern Canyon for a dog run, because I'm big on getting dog parks.
Oh, that'll please plenty of people.
It's very important for the animals. And it would be wonderful if we could get the funding, if we could get somebody interested in doing it. Do you realize that a whole family could come out here on any given day, and so many people can go to the golf range, so many people can do the soccer, maybe somebody wants to do the dog run, or somebody else wants to do perhaps a driving range. You're as limited as your imagination. And I really truly believe that we need to have everybody at the table and have something for everyone.
How does the mechanism work where they're trying to resolve these various possibilities?
By that question, you mean...
Who's in charge, and how are disparate views being handled?
Okay. Well, basically, it's the San Francisco supervisors, because San Francisco owns and operates this golf course. They lease it out to subcontractors to operate it, but San Francisco owns the golf course by virtue of the will we just discussed. And the Board of Supervisors is the body that controls the decisions. So we're dealing with a couple of supervisors at the present time. A supervisor, Mikarini, who is basically wanting to reduce it to the habitat. I would think that that is where he's coming from. Of course, everybody is always open to changing their perspective, but it would seem that he's listening quite a bit to the environmentalists and the habitat argument. Then we have Supervisor Sean Ellsburn, who more or less is listening to the golfers and to the golf advocate. And recently there has been an ordinance that has been brought forth stating that San Francisco wants to identify just exactly what's going to happen to it, because they consider the golf course an issue that needs to be resolved sooner than later. It's been hanging fire for a very, very long time. And Mick Karimi has suggested that it be looked at. He's written an ordinance, which was amended also by Supervisor Ellsburn. And basically this summer, the summer of 2009, there's going to be some identification. City of Pacifica has been given an opportunity to perhaps sit at the table and take over the operation of the golf course. There's a lot of people trying to do a lot of things, even as we're speaking here this evening. And it's going to, as we're going to find out if we can dance that fast in the telescopic time frame we've been given, which is not very long, by July 31st of 2009, which basically at this point in time is only a couple of months away. A lot of things have to be identified.
Well, I certainly hope they'll keep in mind that the clubhouse particularly is on the list of historic places in the city of Pacifica and would require
I'm glad you brought that up, because actually historical landmark basis will certainly strengthen the argument for the golf course. We have a Willis Polk structure that actually by Pacifica was given landmark status on July 22nd, 1985. However, the golf course itself has not been given landmark status as yet. Supervisor Ellsburn has broached that possibility, and it very well may be that that sometime in the future that this golf course would be given landscape, or rather I should say the historical status, landmark status.
Well, I certainly hope so. Thank you, Barbara. We're just about out of time now. For our audience, please contact us as indicated on the bottom of your screen if you would like to get involved with the Pacifica Historical Society. And thank you for watching our show.